it's a little bit strange compared to the others because it's more of almost a philosophy on how you should live your life. Worshiping a god is not really part of it. So it's not to say that they're monotheistic or polytheistic or they don't believe in a god at all. It's more like live your life the right way. And it goes back to a guy named Siddhartha Gautama. And Siddhartha Gautama started this religion in northern India, which today is the country of Nepal. And if you remember back from Unit 1, we gave this as our example of a type of diffusion that's relocation diffusion. So in Nepal today, they practice Hinduism, but where this began was the original node or the hearth is where Siddhartha is from. And Siddhartha was from a very wealthy family. And his family took him to an oracle when he was younger, and they asked what is going to be the future. What's going to be the future of our son? And they told his parents that he is going to be a very great person. And if he stays home in the palace, he's going to grow up to be a very powerful military leader and political leader. And if he leaves the palace, he's going to be a very great spiritual leader. So his parents wanted him to be the great political leader, so they basically wouldn't let him leave. Okay, and like a lot of kids, if your parents are like, definitely don't ever, like if your parents are like, don't ever look in this drawer, you'd be like, why? Right? You start to be interested in it. So they wouldn't let him leave, and he decided that he was going to venture out. And when he went and ventured out, he came across all different types of suffering, right? He saw someone who was sick. He saw someone who was very old and suffering. And he saw someone who was finally at peace after they had died. And he basically came to this conclusion that everybody experiences suffering in the world. And he created these four noble truths, these central truths to the Buddhist teaching. And then what he calls the Eightfold Path, which is a way to live your life to get rid of the suffering. And kind of the gist of it today, and a lot of this is kind of being rebranded in the United States as just the term mindfulness. So Buddhism and mindfulness have a lot in common, but there's, especially when you look at like mental health issues and stuff like that, a lot of people are latching on to mindfulness. But if you're ignorant on the fact or uneducated on Buddhism, if someone starts saying like, well, try Buddhism to help with your mental illness, people feel like they're turning their back on their own religion. And you can really do both. But anyhow, they call it mindfulness. And the whole point is what you do, according to Siddhartha, is that a lot of suffering comes from you like wanting things that you can't have, or being worried about the future, or being worried about what has happened in the past, and you're not living in the here and now. And meditation is a huge part of Buddhism, where you do these mental exercises and you focus sometimes on breathing, sometimes on counting, sometimes on certain sounds, but you focus on just concentrating on what is happening absolutely right here and now. And if you can reach this like stage of enlightenment, well, you have ended the suffering, which is the ultimate goal. All right. So Buddhism is a syncretic religion. So we've already seen syncretism, so don't get these confused, right? But they are very similar. Syncretism is when two cultures blend and a new culture comes out the other side. A syncretic religion simply means you can practice this religion and this one at the same time. And as long as those religions aren't conflicting with one another, you can do that. And you see a lot of this in Asia with Buddhism and Confucianism throughout China, or Buddhism and Shintoism in Japan. And the reason for that is they're more like philosophies, as we said, on the way to live your life. They're less on believing in like this certain God and this one at the same time. Like, how can you do both? Another example is Sikhism, which doesn't blend in with Buddhism, but it's kind of a blending of different elements of Islam and Hinduism up in northern India, another universalizing religion. So anytime you can practice two religions at once, they're in sync, they're synchronized, it's called a syncretic religion. All right, and then something you may see on the landscape, especially in Japan, is what's called a pagoda. So it's just kind of a little place where you can go to get your mind right, to read Buddhist text, to do your meditation. It's called a pagoda. You've probably maybe seen one, but never knew the name of it. I know before I started teaching this class, someone was like, pagoda. I was like, what? And they show you a picture, like, oh, yeah, I've seen that. Especially if you watch old Kung Fu movies or Ninja Turtles and stuff like that. The distribution of Buddhism is mainly in East and Southeast Asia. And here's where we go back to that relocation diffusion. So it began here in Nepal, but is up and left the node or the hearth and moved further east and southeast. So with all these, you want to know where they're distributed around the world. And then as you're already seeing, right, all over East Asia, Buddhism, because it's universalizing and went widespread. We saw Islam all across the Middle East and North Africa and down into Southeast Asia a little bit further than this, Indonesia. And then we saw Christianity in a bunch of different places. Those three are all universalizing. You'll see a much more widespread than the next two that we're getting ready to get into. The two branches of Buddhism is Mahayana and Theravada. And you just kind of showing you the distribution. You don't need to get too bogged down with exactly where the difference are, but you notice they're both in these parts of Asia. Theravada, you may notice as the ones that are very, very disciplined with the Buddhist monks, shaved head, things like that, right? It's much more kind of traditional. The Mahayana is a little bit more modern spin or take on it. All right, then we are going to get into Hinduism. Let me just pause real quick. Y'all have any questions? Y'all still with me? Everybody good? Sounds like it. Good. All right. So Hinduism is one of the oldest religions of humanity. It is the first ethnic religion that we're going to talk about, and they practice polytheism. So there are many different gods in Hinduism. The sacred text that you can read about the religion is in what's called the Vedas. So we're kind of looking at the different books that these religions carry with them. So the Bible for Christians, we talked about the Quran for Islam. Buddhists just has several different people who are into Buddhism, have written different things. There's kind of a lot of different Buddhist texts that you can tap into. And as we get to Hinduism, the Vedas. Hang on one second. All right, my apologies, everybody. All right, back to it. Okay, so one big thing that you will find in Hinduism, especially the further back you go, is this concept of the caste system. So social stratification, they're separating people into these distinct groups. And this comes into when the original people brought Hinduism into the subcontinent of India, where it mainly is. They set this up, and they put themselves in these top kind of tiers of the social system. And these are very, very strict social classes. And you don't need to go memorize what these are. I got a picture of them over here, so don't feel like you need to do that. But essentially what you want to know is each person or each group of people in those castes, they have a very specific job that they need to do. I did unmute myself, right? Cool. I just want to make sure. Sorry, my son threw me off. Okay, so if you are born into a family that's the Shudras, you're the manual laborers. You have a lot of hard work lifting and doing stuff with your body. And you might not feel like you have the best life, but a big part of this is they believe these castes are assigned by the gods. Okay, so if the gods told you that you need to do this part in society, that's your dharma, that's what you're assigned. And what they believe is if you do what you're told and you work really hard as a manual laborer, then when you die, your soul will be reincarnated. And what that means is you will have good karma. So it's kind of like luck. We talk about karma, what goes around comes around in American culture, but this is a concept stolen out of Hinduism. So if you did your best as a manual laborer, the gods will reward your soul. You get good karma and you'll move up. In the next life, you'll be some type of artisan or tradesperson, or you're running the stores as a merchant. In the next life, you move up to one of the administrators, the warriors, and eventually you're at the top, one of the highest academics. So it kind of keeps people in check because they believe everybody above them has been through what you've been through before. And this becomes clear if you look at these people at the bottom called the untouchables. They're this term, if you've heard of someone who's an outcast, they're outside of the caste system. And these people were treated like completely horribly. They had some of the worst jobs throughout history, like unclogging sewers, cleaning up trash. They had to, if someone passed away, they had to get rid of the cadavers and dead bodies. So if you're going to live and just be completely shunned from the rest of society, religion is keeping these people in check. They're saying, well, the gods have assigned me this job. All the people that are being mean to me and making me do this, they've done this in the past life. So I'm going to do it and get that good karma and move on up. Otherwise, you might have some kind of rebellion on your hands, right? So this is a little bit of Hinduism. There's no particular founder of Hinduism. We know in the Indus River Valley, which is in India, 5,000 some years ago, the group of people called the Aryans came in and brought this religion with them. Okay, and you may hear about the Aryans if you've ever studied World War II or when you get to studying it, because the Germans, particularly Hitler, were actually incorrect on this, but they believed the Aryans were the pure Caucasian white people, and they were trying to get the world back to this master race before everybody interbreeded and stuff like that. But they're not actually the same Aryans who have brought Hinduism into India, but they did have a little bit lighter skin. There are lots of gods in Hinduism. But the three major ones we look at are Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma. And just give you a little overview of them. The Vishnu is the god of preserving, whereas Shiva is the god of construction and destruction, so transforming different things. And then Brahma is the creator god. So these are three of the big ones. And then how they interact with the landscape, you see a lot of temples which are very unique and distinct looking, very, very colorful. Here's one in Sri Lanka, off the coast of India. So most of all this is going to be right in India. You see a couple others here, both of these in India, that's built up high. Very unique, and you can, again, see the culture on the landscape, which is the point we're trying to make. The distribution. So here's where the difference comes in. With ethnic religions, people who practice Hinduism are not going on these big missions and journeys trying to teach other people about Hinduism. Okay, you can convert, but that's not something that they're concerned with it. So for that reason, you're only born into it. So it kind of stays where it began in India. A lady lives down the street from me. She is practicing Hinduism, and we went by her house for Halloween a couple years ago, and she had like all kinds of different decorations. My son was asking all types of questions, and she answered all the questions. She was really friendly, told us all about it, but at no point was she like, you should come worship with us, try this religion out. Like it's not part of it. Okay, so when it does diffuse, it's usually through relocation diffusion. Her and her family were born in India, and she up and moved out here to Guilford County and brought the religion with her. But you don't see it then just taken off in Guilford County, because she's not going door to door trying to teach people about her religion. The last ethnic religion we're going to look at, and the last of the five, is Judaism. So this is another ethnic religion, which means they're not trying to get people to join. As we already mentioned, it is monotheistic.